I was just thinking about one of my favorite stories about Africa, and I don't know how many of you know here. Ron and I, we don't like referees, or commissaires as they're called in cycling.
Hang on, I'm one of those. I'm going over here now.
But actually, I'm not sure if you know that Phil, in fact, is an Olympic and a UCI referee. And one of his best jobs... Yeah, that's what I was thinking about, the referees in the Olympic Games. But anyway, that's beside the point. They made a couple of decisions I disagree with. But Phil was the chief commissaire for the Tour of Zambia.
Oh, let me tell that.
Okay.
All right. It's a long time ago. Most people in the room weren't born, but even so, I was appointed to be the chief commissaire of the Tour of Zambia. Now, at that time, which was in fact 1978, I think, I'd never been to Africa in my life. And so I flew in to Lusaka. Very confusing when you walk into customs. I didn't know the way out, for example, so I went out to the nearest door, which 2 weeks later when I went to go back, it was obviously the wrong door. But anyway, I got outside, the guy met me, put me in the car, and I was off downtown Lusaka heading for the hotel, and the driver, who's the organizer, said, chap over there cleaning the car is riding the race tomorrow. I said, well, that's brilliant, let's go and have a word with him. Went over to see him. I said, hi, I said, you're riding the race? He goes, yes, sir, Buon, I am. He was looking quite good for a guy who was cleaning the car. I said, well, okay. He said, well, I look forward to seeing you tomorrow. Oh, I'm not riding tomorrow, he says, I've got a cold. I said, that's terribly sad. Which I was about to say, so you won't be riding the race. And this guy, Jeff, the organizer, took me to one side and said, the UCI rules, you may have to be a little more lenient here. I said, but he can't ride if he doesn't start the race, Jeff. And he said, well, let's carry on. So we walked away.
But Jeff said, but Mr. Liggett, you must understand, this is Africa.
No, he was white. He came from London.
Was he really?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, I thought he was the chief of police.
He was on secondment. So off we go. We have the pre-race briefing. Next morning, we're on the start line, and there's no team arrived from Zanzibar. So I just struck them off the list. And we started the race, had a good day's race, it wasn't anything special. I was given Kawanda's personal chief of police to be my driver. I was calling him sir, and he says, you must not call me sir. I am here to do what you want me to do. I said, okay, Joseph, sit there, drive me up there. And at one stage I said, Joseph, I've never seen in my life a hippopotamus in the wild. Oh, we have them in the Kafue River. I said, well, let's leave the race. The race was crap, to be honest. And I said to the... I said to Joseph, well, tell your policeman to look after the riders and let's go. So he told the policeman in the local language, we go. Because I'm stepping out of an unmarked but plated Zambian police car. They guard every installation in Zambia, police, railway stations, bridges, you know. So I step out and the guy jumps to attention and salutes me and I said, hi, how are you going? And walked past him, went down to the river to look for the hippos, found all these fish with a spear through them. So the guy who was supposed to be guarding the bridge, built in 1885, was actually fishing when we weren't there. I was so naive. I said, Joseph, look at all these fish. Joseph ripped this guy apart. Then we get back in the car when the race catches up, and I said, Joseph, what do you do? What happened to all those fish? He says, they are in the trunk of the car. I've got 6 kids. So on we go. And eventually the race finishes. And 2 days into the race, we'd only had, 36 starters? No, 28 starters we had. And into the race, we got down to the stage town. Next morning, 6 o'clock, we always ate at 6 o'clock. Most beautiful circumstance on duckboards looking over tropical lakes. It was fabulous. And I said to Jeff, the organizer, I said, Jeff, the guys on that bottom corner look a lot blacker than the rest. And he says, well, they are. They've come over from Zanzibar. I said, well, hang on, they never started the race. He said, no, they arrived last night. I said, well, what have they done? Come to watch? I said, I can't do much about that now. He said, no, you've got to let them ride. He said, they're on a government grant and they're at war with the Sudan. They had to wait 3 days to fly over the Sudan. I said, okay, my job's on the line. I went up to see the guy and I said to him, I said, you're a bit late. Yes, he said, very sorry. He said, we had a very long journey. We had to fly around. And I said, okay. Well, I said, look, there's 2 days to go in the race. I said, you better get your riders down to the start. You've got 30 minutes. Oh, first of all, I said, can I see your racing licenses? Your racing licenses? Oh, in Zanzibar, only motor car drivers have licenses. And I thought, well, this is, I'm dead. Big job with the UCI. I was only a kid. I'm out of the job next week. I said, okay, get down to the start. Well, we can't ride today. He says, my riders are very tired from the journey. I said, well, it finishes tomorrow, you know. Yes, we'll start tomorrow. I said, now there's no racing for the prizes, because the team actually looks superb. They have great bikes and good clothes. So they ride next day, so I thought, right, I'm going to follow these guys. It was a team time trial. So I got behind them, and off we go. And they're looking good. And a boomslang, which is a tree snake, and it's very poisonous. If it bites you, you've got 4.5 hours, and you hemorrhage out of every open part of your body. And so they saw it, and they knew what it was, so they imploded. Never seen a team ride into each other before. And they went up in the air, and they all went down a ditch over there. 2 guys couldn't continue, the other 4 did. So at the end of the race, I had 28 starters, but in fact 36 finished. And it's absolutely... I put all this in my report to the UCI, and they wrote back and said, thank you very much. They made absolutely no comment. But it was true. I would tell you one little thing. I told you about Joseph, who was the chief of police, and 3 days in he said, Mr. Phil. Couldn't say my surname. He said, what do you want, Joseph? He said, I want one of those yellow jumpers that the leaders wear. I thought, so that's a bit of a tall order, Joseph. I'll find out if I can get you one. Thank you. I went to it was being led by a Dane. I went to the Danish list, said, you've got to give me a yellow jersey for the chief of police. And they said, no worries. Gave me the jersey. I gave it to him. He snatched it and put it away so fast you wouldn't believe it. And he didn't even say thank you. I thought, you miserable bugger. And it was because he didn't want to be seen to be taking the yellow jersey. Well, at the end of the race, the Dane won. And so we were invited to the Danish embassy for the big night out, and it was a big do. And we go down to the embassy. Believe me, Zambia is a hot, sticky, tropical place. So we're in. I saw Joseph with his leather sashes now, his epaulets. This boy who looked exactly what he was, the chief of police for Kawanda's escort. And we get in, and he comes up, Mr. Phil. I said, hi, Joseph, you look great, mate. He says, come into the garden. I want to show you all the poisonous plants that live in Zambia, like the Venus flytrap. I thought, well, I don't really want to see the plants. But anyway, he was insisting. So he took me around and showed me the plants. He said, this is a flytrap. He said, this one you mustn't touch because the pain will not go away for 12 months. And then he says, Mr. Phil, look. And he opened his jersey, his coat. And there was the yellow jersey underneath. He had 3 layers on. And I'll tell you, it was 110 degrees in there. And he didn't have a bead of sweat on him. But he actually appreciated it, but he was just scared he'd have it taken off him. So, yeah, they're wonderful people.